Barry, it's just amazing. In a bad way. It's just a miserable world right now, especially for me. I mean, I'm a huge sports fan like yourself, and it's just an empty world for me. But
that was your escape.
yeah,
Like at least if we had this, you would have that escape.
but I wanted to ask Barry. So, what do we know about the Nats players and coaches right now? How many are still in Florida? Where, if they are in Florida, are they working out together, like at a high school field, or did some of them go back to their Latin countries? What do we know?
I don't know as much as I probably should about that. I can tell you that there are not group workouts, and in fact, MLB has prohibited group workouts at training facilities. That was on my agenda today. I mean, you talk about not having a diversion. We also not only have to have stuff to write about so that we have a product, but there's a duty to report some of this and keep people up to date. That on my agenda today was to check in with some Nats players. I've tried to check in with the Caps as well. They are under kind of a verbal lockdown from the NHL level. They want to make sure they have one message and they're not, players aren't spouting off all over the place. But I think there's kind of a curiosity factor in, how are they passing the time? How are they, staying in shape? Somebody like Max Scherzer, who is, really a regimented, programmed person, has to have thoughts on, what he's going to do. He's clearly not, wouldn't be ramping up. Like right now, he would be about to make his start prior to opening day, in which he's throwing either 90 or 105 pitches, somewhere in that range. He has to have ratcheted that back, but he's also got to be, that guy, more than any, has got to be pacing probably in his rental house in West Palm. But anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying I have no information on that, but I'm trying to get it today.
Right. I know Major League Baseball, Manfred came out and said that they pushed back the possible opening day to May 15th. That's not going to happen, and that was just that 8-week period. But let's just say they can't start by All-Star break. What's the point at that point? I mean, they're going to play 80 games, if that. Who knows about the schedule, how they would work that out.
By the way, 80, in my opinion, would be plenty.
Not for me. But what would be the point if they're only going to play 80 to 90 games?
Entertainment.
Well, I think at that point, and I agree with you, May 15th, I don't think those kind of dates should be thrown around at this point because it gives a little bit of false hope. But I would say, at that, if we get to June, or like you said, the All-Star break, and it's going to be 80 games or 75 games or whatever, we will want so badly to return to signs of normalcy, and having a baseball season, or pushing the NBA and Stanley Cup Finals into the summer would give us some sense of everything's going to be okay. Not to mention that there would be an economic reason to do it, right? You want to give people a place to go to spend money, and workers to go back and sell beer and sweep aisles and show people to their seats and all that kind of stuff. I think if there's any way that baseball can have a season, they're going to have a season, even if it's a really truncated one.
I asked Dan Shaughnessy this earlier. He didn't really have the answer, but maybe you would. And I used Mookie Betts as an example. Guys who are in the last years of their deals, and Betts would become the top free agent in baseball probably next year. If they do cancel the season altogether, does he retain that free agent year, or does he have to play the one more year with the Dodgers?
No,
how would that work?
That's a really, really good question. All that stuff, that's baked into the collective bargaining agreement. You get service time for days in the major leagues, and that's his clock ticks not by the calendar, but by the baseball calendar. Does the baseball calendar move forward if there are no games? I'm not sure that it does. Say the season is wiped out. There are going to be tons of questions about, well, does Bryce Harper not get paid his $30 million this year, and does the money and the years just get kicked down the road? That is for a league that right now has a pretty contentious relationship between the union and the league, with a new CBA to be negotiated after the 2021 season. These are going to be real questions because, owners are, I think, understandably would say, well, we have no product. How are we supposed to, pay a payroll that is $175 million or whatever, when we have, no means to make money off TV or off of gate receipts. So all of that stuff is going to have to get unwound at some point. I'm not sure that they're digging in on that quite yet when things are still so much in flux. And going back to your original point, where are guys? Harper tweeted yesterday, or I guess maybe it was on Instagram, he packed up his car and was driving back to Vegas, like from Clearwater. There's got to be lots of cases like that. And
Right.
We're still in the messy part, I think, at this point.
Joined by Barry Svrluga, sports columnist for the Washington Post, and you wrote about the Olympics. So the Olympics were scheduled to take place in about 4 months. And as of now, I guess, Japan is saying that it's still set. But you write about a lot of different angles in your column, including, athletes prepare and kind of have a timeline for this. What are the athletes to make of this situation?
Well, it's a disaster right now, and I think there's a few levels to it. The International Olympic Committee that stages this thing and gets, billions of dollars from NBC and others around the world to put this on is, I think, stupidly sending strong messages that we're going to hold the Olympics, we're going to hold them on time, we're being responsible, but we feel like we're going to be able to, we feel confident that we're going to go ahead with it. That seems short-sighted and misleading. They're scheduled to start July 24th. The IOC is not saying, here's the evidence that we have that cases in Japan will have zeroed out at that point, that you're talking about 11,000 athletes from every corner of the globe, not to mention coaches and fans and support staff and media. It just seems silly that an event that by its very nature brings people from everywhere is going to be able to be held, that they're very confident they're going to be able to hold it on time. The athletes in the U.S., for example, the USOC shut down their training facilities in Colorado Springs yesterday and told the athletes they had to go elsewhere. You mentioned the regiment. It's very similar to Max Scherzer building up for the opening day. These swimmers, for instance, have the trials are in Omaha in late June, early July. They build to peak at that point. They can't practice at the facilities that they're normally used to practicing at, if they can practice at all. A growing number of athletes are saying, you've got to admit that we're likely to postpone this thing and start working on the logistics of that so we can know how to treat their body. And just lastly, I know this is long-winded, but the athletes are also saying, if we're trying to build up for this specific date, for this date that we were told originally, we could be putting ourselves at risk and putting others at risk by going to training facilities, going to gyms to train our bodies
Right.
at a time we shouldn't be doing that.
Real quick, Barry, I know we got to go. Yes or no answers, okay?
Yep.
Do you think the NHL will return this spring or summer?
Yes. Gosh,
So-
that sounds naive.
Do you think the NBA will return? I guess yes.
Yes,
then.
I think both of those, yes, this summer.
Okay. What about, all right, obviously, do you think baseball is going to return?
I do think baseball, and I think the Olympics will get punted to either by a year or into the fall.
And PJ Tour?
Yeah, I think by the end of the year they'll figure out a way to get that done.
All right.
I might be
You're
wrong.
more
Maybe I'm
optimistic.
being.
You're more
yeah.
optimistic than me, but I hope you're right, and I'm wrong.
I hope I am too, but I don't know if it's a smart way to answer it.
No, I appreciate the honesty. Thank you, Barry.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Man, how times have changed. Last time we talked to him, we were breaking down Nat's third base
I
spot.
know we're talking about Carter Kieboom.
Right.
Could he do it? How's the footwork?
I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to be honest with you. I just some of these things are so scary to me. Remember, I thought for a second I might have been having a heart attack. My heart's I got a pain down my arm, and I don't think I did.
When?
I think it's stress.